I want to welcome everybody tonight to a really exciting, very fun and creative version of Shires TV with none other than Jim Nova. This is really very exciting for us. This is the first time that I've gotten to see this even live. We talk about it all the time. I've seen the end result of all of Jim's works. The full performances, ITF, or his incredible new solo recording of just himself playing all these overdub parts. But it's really, really cool to be able to see the process and kind of talk about some creativity in the music tech side of things and how applicable it is to what's going on right now. We're definitely trying to find ways to keep Shires TV interesting, but also find ways to make you feel like there might be something new that you can try in your own playing or a new outlet. And being able to talk with Jim, this is going to be a very exciting session. I thought it'd be cool if we could cover some of his overdub process and his arrangements and all of that. If you have nerdy trombone questions, we can totally get to that. I mean, Jim plays everything from alto, soprano, all the way down through contra, and then some. So we can talk about different tips and tricks for things. So if you do have questions, pop them in the comments below, and I'll keep an eye on it. We can work them in. But without further ado, Jim, if you don't mind, I've known you for quite a while now through our Shires connection, and we have the whole Connecticut thing going for us. But if you can fill the whole group in on a little bit about you and where you came from and how you got to be in the Pittsburgh Symphony and this now crazy world of your own music that's now being played really globally on a global scale.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I was thinking about what you said earlier, and I have a friend who, Lance LeDuc, he's a euphonium professor at Carnegie Mellon University, and he and his partner, his business partner Andrew Hitz, have this podcast called the Brass Junkies,
Yeah, of course.
and they always Duquesne, where I teach, is a sponsor of the podcast, so they always thank me on the podcast, except they always give me some nickname, like Jim blank blank Nova, and one of the
Okay.
funniest recent ones was Jim socially distancing before it was cool. And I texted him back and I was like, I've been doing this whole overdub thing for 8 years, and I have like a whole basement full of workout equipment. So you're actually more right than you know.
Oh my gosh, it's so wild.
So, yeah, I mean, I definitely want to talk a lot about that a little bit later on, and I know a lot of people want to have questions and stuff.
And
I also just kind of want to address some of the burnout people have been feeling with these virtual ensembles and stuff.
and just one second, Jim. Do you think it's possible for you to get a little bit closer to the mic? I think it's a little bit
Yeah,
hard.
it's still not loud enough.
I think that's a little bit better closer.
You know what? I'm gonna. There. How about that?
Yeah, that's great. Perfect.
Yeah, the Zoom setting was on the wrong mic, so giving a little preview that way that there might be some playing. So, um, but yeah, it's where do I start? Let's see. So I grew up in Connecticut. When I was a little kid, my dad would put on records and like play these incredible pieces of music and kind of explain the story to me. So, at a very young age, music became very visual, so naturally movie scores were really, a big love of mine as a little kid, and, definitely caught the Star Wars bug early. Actually, I was probably into Star Wars and the music before I'd even actually picked an instrument, because I went to see Empire Strikes Back in the theater with my brother opening weekend, like the opening weekend, not the re-release, but and it kind of launched my brass curiosity. And then when I got to the age where the Connecticut public schools, they were you're picking instruments, I really don't have any kind of romantic story about picking the trombone. It wasn't like I liked the shape or saw some player play it. I think I was like, oh, okay, I'll play this. And it's kind of an interesting discussion about like what comes first. Does the instrument shape you, or do you get drawn to the instrument, or that kind of thing? So I don't really know. I just know that my dad especially was like, my brother and I had to play instruments through high school, and that was just not up for discussion. He just believed in the value of learning music and studying music as a catalyst for a lot of other things. And so it was very important to him. I don't think he had ever intended for me to go into music.
As a full-time.
Yeah, I think he was a little worried about that. But it just became, to back up a little bit, like my freshman year of high school, my mom was not in very good health, and she had a lot of heart issues. And the summer after my freshman year of high school, she actually suffered a massive heart attack and passed away. And so it was like, and the crazy thing is it was only 3 months before that she bought me, my old Bach 42, which I still have, like my first real, there was no such thing as Shires. Back then it was, you either played a Con 88H or Bach 42, take your pick.
That's it.
Those are your choices.
Right.
And so I played a Bach 42, and after she passed, I mean, it just, all the groundwork that my dad had laid for being interested in music just kind of coalesced, and I just became, it was such an outlet for me and such a sanctuary for me to just dive into music and play and just pour my emotions into that's when music stopped being something that I do and it became something that I am.
Wow.
It was crystallized in that moment. And growing up in Connecticut, I'm sure you know the Hartford Symphony, like that fall after my mom passed away, my dad took me to a Hartford Symphony performance of Mahler 5.
Wow, man. And
because he used to go with my mom, they had a subscription that they would go. And so, he took me. And I just remember seeing that concert and being like, yeah, I'm doing that. That's what I'm doing. And my dad was a little worried about that. I had really great teachers, and my band director was in the Hartford Symphony as well. My private teacher was in the Hartford Symphony. And so had really good teaching. And I was fortunate to win a spot to go to Curtis. And it's the only time I've ever heard my dad exclaim in joy. Like, he's not a very demonstrative person physically, In fact, he was kind of rough to grow up with as a musician because he's musically trained. It never even occurred to him either. He would show up, at the backstage or whatever after a concert I had played, maybe I played a solo or something in the jazz band or the concert band or something. And he would come back and he wouldn't be like, hey, nice job. He would be like, hey, so Jim, there was one note that just kind of went, brr, brr, had like a sound. It didn't sound good. What happened there?
Gosh.
And I was like, thanks, Dad. I'm glad that's the only thing you came away with.
My gosh.
So he was just, he was
good ears, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, fantastic ears.
Yeah.
But then, when I got into Curtis, that was the only time I've ever heard him exclaim in joy. Usually he's very reserved. Oh, yes, good, but he was just like yelled out when I got into Curtis. I think mostly because he just felt the weight of tuition just kind of fall off his shoulders.
Absolutely.
The
gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to Curtis and I studied with Glenn Dodson, and for the younger viewers on here now, like Glenn Dodson was the principal trombone player of the Philadelphia Orchestra. He played under Ormandy and Riccardo Muti, and he was not only my teacher, but he was Joe Alessi's teacher. He was Blair Bollinger's teacher. He was Mark Lawrence's teacher. Long list of really incredible players, and me studied there. So with him, and he was an awesome. He was like a second father. He was really a wonderful guy and an incredible player, and somewhat demoralizing at times because he would never bring his horn to lessons. He would just bring a mouthpiece, and then he'd take your horn and demonstrate something. And I'd just be like, okay, I think I should quit now. Just like he just played it on my horn. It's not even his own instrument,
That's funny.
But he was great. And, then after that, I started getting, I'd heard about Norman Bolter, in Boston, and people were talking about how incredible he was. And so I sought him out. And this was back in the day, when you didn't have computers in your pocket that you could just look up what people look like. I had no idea what he looked like. I just had heard, these recordings of him with the Boston Symphony, Boston Pops, and
Yeah.
the Empire Brass Quintet, all that stuff, And I just like, wow, what an amazing sound. I really, want to meet him. All the students I talked to who studied with him raved about him. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to seek him out, and I'm in Connecticut. I'm 90 miles from Boston. And so I call him up, on the telephone,
Right.
and set up a time, and I meet him at the stage door, and he turns the corner and looks up at me. And I guess it was written all over my face. He just looked at me and he goes, "You thought I'd be bigger, didn't you?" So it's totally true, and but then that started, what has been a lifelong friendship and mentorship, and
He's a total gem.
Oh, he's amazing. And actually, he's the reason I switched to Shires.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Because I was a grad student with him at New England Conservatory, and about sort of halfway through my first year of grad school, I just was kind of feeling I needed a change. I just didn't, this Bach is fine. It's not really put together all that well. It's kind of got some quirks. I actually think my high range developed in spite of this horn, because the high range is so bad, So like, I think I like overtrained in order to be able to play high, So, and in a lesson one time, he had just gotten his first Shires. Like,
Wow.
I don't even think it had a serial number on it. And so he let me try it, and I was like, I think I went to the factory like that weekend.
That's funny.
And my first Shires didn't have a serial number on it.
It was early stuff, yeah.
Yeah, very early.
Yeah.
So then I stayed in Boston for a couple years, and I freelanced a bunch, and subbed a lot with the BSO and the Pops, and then I got a job in the Utah Symphony. So I was there for 8 years, and met my wife there, who's she's a French horn player, but she now runs the Three Rivers Young People's Orchestras here in Pittsburgh, and she still plays, not much, but occasionally. And she's got the kind of chops that she can just like pick her horn up and it's right where she left it, which I do not have.
Yeah, totally gifted. Yeah.
But so we were in Utah. I was in Utah for 8 years, and then was fortunate to win the position here in Pittsburgh. And this is just such a great fit for me. I mean, like this brass section, it's just such a joy to go to work with such friends and colleagues, and also just there's really very little discussion. We just play so just connect so well. There's like a real matching of ideas and styles, and so it's just been great to be here. I can't believe it. I'm finishing my 12th season. No, I'm about to start the fall will be the start of my 12th season here.
Well, yeah, I was just going to ask you how many years now it's been that you've been in Pittsburgh. But
yeah, I can't believe it. We've won a Grammy. We've made tons of recordings, and it's just great to be in such a cool town too. It's like, actually, Pittsburgh is a lot like Boston. It's just sort of smaller.
Right.
It's an old city built on water with really weird navigating roads and that kind of stuff.
I mean, it's a really rad place to be able to go. Yeah. When my husband was there playing and stuff,
it was
like one of the best weeks that he had, just because the city was, obviously the orchestra's incredible, everybody's so wonderful, but then the city is just so cool to be able to spend time in.
Yeah, I think I still owe your husband a dry cleaning bill. I think he was literally in front of my bell for that whole week.
I think that's true. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny, like the first couple weeks, or actually a couple months I was here, I was like, holy cow, the way that the amount of energy this brass section puts out. And Craig Knox, the tuba player, he said, yeah, Jim, it's just the way this orchestra rolls. There's no regular season games in this orchestra. Every game's the playoffs here. Right. So, but anyway, that's how getting this job was how I ended up owning and operating a bass trombone. Like, I hadn't been, up until I got this job, I had, a tenor, a small tenor, and an alto, and that's it.
And so your role is second/utility, right?
Right. So I primarily play second, but I probably play the next instrument I play the most is bass. I probably play.
Yeah.
And then I play first, a fair amount. It just depends. In fact, I've had to play first under some really scary situations. Like if we should maybe back up a little bit, but like when the whole overdubbing thing came out of about 8 years ago, I just was, looking for a different sort of fun challenge and fun way to get into shape for the season.
Okay.
And so because I now played bass and alto and tenor, I thought, what if I just started recording these trombone choir arrangements that I'd been doing since I was at Curtis? Because that whole arranging thing started with Glenn Dodson. He would have these bone bashes at Curtis, and that's what he called them. And he would invite the Philly Orchestra's trombone section and the Curtis studio, and then a couple other folks from town that he knew, and we would just sit and read like these crazy trombone ensemble
arrangements. What an amazing opportunity.
Oh yeah, and Joe Alessi would come down to passing through, and he would that's how I met. That's the first time I ever met Joe, was at one of those, and it was also really cool. I was there when Nitsan Haros got the job as principal and Dodson retired, and he had a bone bash, and there was like the outgoing and the incoming principal trombone of the Philly Orchestra playing together. It was just a crazy moment. But that's where the arranging stuff started. Like I just started arranging for those kind of gatherings. And naturally, with my love of John Williams, I just wanted to do John Williams stuff. So I took my Superman arrangement and I just started recording the parts myself. I had no idea what I was doing. Much like many people out there right now, just jumped in and had no idea what, when somebody said, oh, you should add some panning, I was like, what does my frying pan have to do with this? And he's like, no. I mean, like, and so I just learned by getting messy with it, just jumping in and just doing it and trying to have fun with it. And I had just a blast. I mean, that first Superman recording, I think it might have taken me 2 weeks to do it, like, because I just no idea. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Done all of that, like playing all those parts in 2 weeks. That's still pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I had no idea what I was doing, and I just, in fact, it's still on my YouTube page. I think, like, I posted it as a YouTube video, and I just put like, the Superman crest as the picture, and like. One of my buddies said, hey man, you got to fire your video editor. It was just the same picture the whole time. I was like, you don't understand. I'm the video editor. I have no idea what I'm doing,
I'm all trombone parts. I'm video editor.
Yeah. Literally a one-man band,
Right. Yeah.
So, but anyway, once I started doing the overdubs and getting really into it, I just kind of got into this like flow of it and just started really making a lot of them. And all I would use is what most people have these days, just a simple USB microphone and a laptop and Audacity. That's all I had, for many years. And so basically, to make a long story short, I got a sort of panicked call the week we were recording Beethoven Fifth. And this was after Murray Crew had left the orchestra for health reasons. Mm-hmm. And he ended up passing away a couple of years later, but incredible guy, incredible colleague. And technically my first bass trombone teacher, actually.
Oh, that's wild. That's funny.
Because I had I was like, can we play some stuff and you can comment, and he, anyway, so Murray was out of the orchestra. So I was playing bass on that recording session, or that week when we were recording Beethoven Fifth. And basically, but on Friday morning, I got a panicked call saying, can you play first? Can you actually play the alto part?
Wow.
Basically, it's a combination of an illness and a recovering injury that, I won't go into.
Storm.
Yeah, it was literally a perfect storm.
Mm-hmm.
And Pete, was recovering from this injury, that he had. And so he was not comfortable playing first yet. It was like his first week back or something. So he calls me and he says, oh man, I don't know who we're going to get. Maybe Mulcahy come down from Chicago, or, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, I don't want to ask, I don't want you put you in that position if I don't know if you're comfortable doing that. And I said, Pete, have you heard any of these overdubs that I've been doing and I'm continuing to do? And he was like, no, I don't know. Because he's not on Facebook. He's not on any. Yeah. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, okay, I'm going to send you something. Take a listen. And I sent him one of the Star Wars ones I did that had all some crazy alto stuff in it. And he called back like 2 minutes later, or 3 minutes later. He's like, "Yeah, you're doing it. You're doing it." Yeah, this is crazy. What is this?
And you got the job. Yeah.
Yeah. So I ended up doing it, and it was, let's just say I spent that whole weekend on one butt cheek, if you know what I mean. Just kind of like, you know. But it shows you how like this side project actually has bared so much fruit for me over these past 8 years. You know, I mean, my SoundCloud just passed 1 million listens.
All of that. That's crazy.
I literally can't believe those words. You know, like I just thought when I put it on SoundCloud, I'd be like, maybe a handful of trombone players will listen to it or whatever. I had no idea it would become, I mean, it's averaging like 4,200 listens a week.
That's insane. It is crazy. I mean, it's amazing, but like the amount of reach that you've been able to like, and you know, excitement that you've been able to bring to the trombone and the brass community through these overdubs is really insane.
Well, and for me, they're fun because it's a very different experience than a regular concert or performing or rehearsing and that kind of thing. Because, you know, it's as if you were a sculptor, but you can replace the material you removed anytime you want.
That's neat.
You know, or like a painter where you can like literally erase a part of the canvas and do it over again if you want. So it's there's really nothing quite like it, you know, like filmmaking.
That, just a quick question came in from our friend Dave Sporney. Hi, Dave.
Oh, hi, Dave.
He said, Jim, did you do takedowns or did you have access to scores for these projects?
I always try to use scores because, I mean, taking dictation on some of these really densely packed harmonies is like, it's very intense. I mean, you can do it. I've done it, but it's very intense. I have a buddy who I knew from Utah who has got like that kind of hearing that you can just sit down and play a piano chord or something, some kind of dense chord, and he can just write it out. Like, so I don't have that kind of hearing. I mean, you know, I went through my ear training at Curtis, but I'm not that good, you know, but most of the time I use scores just because there's so much detail in there that actually you can't always hear on the recordings even, you know, like just especially with John Williams stuff, the denseness of his harmonic language is, you know, really, really incredible. That's what's cool about crawling into these scores and doing these recordings is like, you know, you get to play every part. So you get to experience everything. And let me tell you, what's that?
You get the best of the best. You get the best of all parts.
Well, and when I first started doing bass trombone playing on these recordings, I had a whole different appreciation for how hard it is to get that thing to speak on time.
Yeah.
You know?
All of that crazy articulated stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very different experience than on a tenor. And, but yeah, I mean, I just started with, you know, when I moved here, I got a bass trombone and, you know, the auxiliaries and stuff that you mentioned, like the nutty soprano trombone I have and the contra and stuff. Those were all just kind of add-ons to what I was already doing. I just kind of got, you know, curious and wanted to experience that stuff. So
if somebody's just starting out, and I know we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty stuff about how you do this, but if somebody's just starting out and wanting to do their best Jim Nova and do an overdub of something that they feel really passionate about, I mean, they can record parts on the equipment that they have. They don't feel like they need to go out and borrow or figure out how to get their hands on an alto. I mean, make best with what you got, right?
Exactly. I mean, I think, you know, with the pandemic, everybody's been kind of thrown into having to do this. Like, I mean, especially that first month, I don't think a day went by where my inbox for either my email or my texts or calls, I was getting calls and texts from people I hadn't heard from in years, you know, like just, hey,
by the way,
that thing you do, can you kind of teach me how to do that, you know? And half the reason I made that overdubbing for beginners video on YouTube is just to like be able to send people there and like have it as a resource, you know, and it's just a really straightforward, basic way of how to get started, you know, because I think
I'm going to link your YouTube channel and your website too, so people can kind of check out some of the stuff.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it's, I think the the burnout, because I've been seeing, especially lately, I've been seeing people posting about uh, kind of being over these virtual ensembles and kind of done, or I can't find, I don't, they're finding trouble being motivated or feel like it's not collaborative, or, like they're burning out basically,
Right.
or maybe never even caught on.
Yeah.
And, as somebody who, I mean, let's just put it this way. I mean, in the first 3 years that I did these overdubs, my playing probably improved more in that 3 years than the previous six,
Yeah. Wow.
in terms of just arc, like
Mhm.
especially on the alto and the bass. Like I couldn't sight read on an alto before I started doing that. Now I can sight read on an alto, and I feel perfectly comfortable playing a major part on bass trombone in the orchestra. I mean, and Craig Knox, he was always commenting, like, every time I would play bass, it would be, months at a time, but months between when I would play. So he would only hear me playing bass like every now and again, and he'd be like, "Man, it's just really, getting better and better every time." And so, like, that's number one. I mean, on a technical level, like,
Sure. Makes sense.
just because when you think about it, and from a technical point of view, the two towers that you have to, meet with your playing if you want to be a professional is good intonation and good rhythm. So if you're recording yourself constantly and evaluating it, you're having to drive between those two lines on the road all the time. You don't get to, because when you listen back to it, if you hear something that's out of time or out of tune, it's like sour milk. You just can't. No, I got to do that again.
Yeah. Of course.
Now the trap is, though, and this is a real problem, I think now. I think because we've been doing this for so long, is that uh, it's not a meal replacement.
Nice. Okay.
It can't possibly uh, take the place of live playing and collaborating. I mean, I never intended, as even though I made that joke at the beginning of, like, social distancing before it was cool, but I've never intended my overdubbing to take the place of live concerts and playing with my colleagues. It's always meant to feed that and to help that be better, because if I hold myself accountable during overdubbing to a really high level, every time I'd go back into the orchestra, I could tell how quickly I was adjusting, or how, and at the end of the last semester, I, with everything going online, all my students, I gave them all overdubbing projects, and, okay, you arrange this and collaborate with everyone. And one of the coolest comments I heard from one of my students was, he said, it's really funny doing all this recording work. I listen to music differently now.
Oh, that's neat.
Like I listen to the more precision in a way that I didn't before. Like his eyes have kind of been opened, because now he has to create it himself, and he realizes certain patterns and such. I thought that was really cool,
Yeah.
and I totally agree. It's changed the way I listen to music too.
Yeah.
But another trap is playing to perfection, like wanting everything to be perfect because you have unlimited chances. So how dare you not play perfectly? And it's like, well, people, we're flesh and bone, we're flesh and blood, like we're not machines, even though we're using machines. So I think the big trap is that they start playing to the tape, as it were, playing to the recording rather than playing to the music.
Right.
And, I feel like I love this medium because I get to take unlimited chances. I get to I get to try whatever I want. I try to reach for anything I can. And so, my recordings aren't meant to be demonstrations of what's probable.
Nice. Okay. That makes
They're intended to show what's possible. I mean, like the soprano trombone, it's a cool instrument and everything, but for a trombone player to play it, it's not a very high percentage instrument.
sure.
So it's not something I would like recommend people play, unless they've sort of done a whole lot of other things first,
Yeah.
like I mean, I pushed my alto trombone playing to a place where, I was asking so much of my playing that finally I got to a place where I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to try this thing. I think
Oh
I'm ready.
man, like hearing you and like Nate the Gong playing on some of your arrangements and stuff with the alto parts is just mind bending, especially like for me as a trumpet player. I'm like, oh, like
Yeah, we're getting close to your atmosphere.
you are, yeah. Yeah. I gotta watch my back.
Well, I mean, but again, this is another thing about why this can be such a fun thing to do, is that you can push yourself in a way that's very healthy and puts other things in perspective. I mean, um, ending a concert, my trombone at the movies concert that I
Yeah.
have done, like as of last count, this technology stuff and the trombone choir movie concert, I've been to 52 schools in 6 years.
Yeah. And a lot in the last couple of years too. I mean, you were so busy, and I know you had a ton
Yeah.
of stuff coming up too. So that,
Yeah. And um, but ending that concert with the throne room, which has a double G above high F, above the Beethoven Fifth excerpt, ending a concert like that, it's like that's where it has to go. It can't go anywhere else. I can't end the first half with that, and, working my way up to that physically kind of puts Renish in perspective, it's like Renish doesn't feel crazy anymore, and so from a physical point of view, it offers you an opportunity to kind of train in a way that's very healthy, because you're never playing for very long. You just play, a couple of phrases if you want. I mean, of course you can play as long as you want, but you're not gaining anything like that. And it's like craftsmanship. You get to like really work on stuff. But I think that people are probably getting burned out because it's like they've taken it too far to that point, where I just want to play until it's perfect. And it's like, it's before I got more sophisticated software and I was just using Audacity, which is fairly limited editing wise. I mean, you can't really do much editing at all, except maybe move something left to right, but you can't balance. You can do some balance stuff, but Audacity is like driving an old stick shift car.
mm-hmm.
Like I learned how to drive stick shift on my buddy Josh's like 63 Volkswagen Beetle, which
Very different than driving your BMW, is what you're telling me.
very different. That car had less horsepower than my watch, trying to get that car to start uphill is like, you pray that it'll not stall and that, you don't burn out the clutch trying to get up. But my point is that Audacity is like that. So if you can do good stuff on Audacity, then when you transfer to other software, you can just move a lot quicker and refine it. But what's funny is I have found that my skill is being outpaced by my level of quality I expect from myself. So it's like people are like, oh, well, you're using Logic now and good microphones and blah, 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 so you must be able to crank these out so fast. I was like, actually, no. It's like, it's about the same, because the level I'm expecting from myself is so much higher now,
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So like when you set down to do a new project, after you have the arrangement done or whatever you're gonna like start attempting, how long does it take you? Is it a week? Is it a month?
Well, early on when I first started doing some of that Star Wars stuff, I actually didn't even write the arrangements out. I would just like open a score and just start playing stuff until it sounded complete. And then John Whitaker teaches at in Tuscaloosa, University of Alabama. He was the first one to ever ask to do that trombone at the movies concert. Okay. And I was like, oh well, half those arrangements aren't even written out. So I had to go back and like write them out. And but now I always do the arrangement first. So I have this process where I'll record the arrangement, and while I'm recording, I'll write in red pen like any changes I make to the arrangement. That I take my best guess at certain passages, what will work, what will fit, and then I always end up kind of saying, you know what, that's going to work better if I divide that up, or if I put that in the bass part instead, or and that's another cool thing about, and this is what I encourage people to do with overdubbing, is embrace the unique advantages of this medium. Like right. you can make instrument switches that you would never be able to make in a live concert, you know.
Totally.
You know, like one of the ones I love is in my Star Wars album, Anakin's theme. At the very end, there's the big Darth Vader, the big Imperial March quote at the very end, and it kind of sinks down into this really dark A minor chord, you know. And at the point that that happens, I actually switched to all bass trombones, like
Oh,
even the sort of upper tenor parts, because I wanted the color to just suddenly switch. And you could never do that in person. You can't, you know, you can't do that in a live concert because it's literally like from one note to the next, I switched horns, you know. And
that is neat.
that's what I love about it, is that it affords you certain creative license that you can't manifest in real life, you know. And so yeah, I just think that you gotta, like, people out there getting burned out have to just also realize that this is all we got right now, you know. Is, you know, it's not like, trust me, I would love to go back to playing. I mean,
Of course.
you know, some of the biggest casualties of our season that really made me sad was John Williams was supposed to come here mid-June to conduct a concert with us, and then a week later we were supposed to record Bruckner 7, and then the week after that we were supposed to play Return of the Jedi with the movie. I mean, you
This is
know,
like your dream come true. This is like, you know, Jim's
the dream not come true, you know. So I mean, I think all that stuff is going to get rescheduled, and you know, there's going to be, you know, but for now, you know, it's like, I think that the virtual ensemble stuff, for people who are kind of poo-pooing it or saying I'm over it, or you know, don't really, I respectfully ask you to reevaluate
or try something new.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, there are some pretty loud voices out there who have drawn, you know, some support on that, and I feel like that's a disservice because, I mean, think about it this way: if you're preparing an orchestral excerpt for an audition, you are playing it on your own. You are playing a part of a section by yourself. So if you can't work on this and imagine, or like, you know, use your creativity to imagine playing it with the orchestra. I mean, we all know how when you listen to, like, the excerpt that always sticks out to me in auditions, you know, because we had bass trombone auditions years ago, and my good friend and colleague Jeff D won the job, you know, just hit the jackpot with that guy, you know, great player, great guy, you know. But, you know, William Tell, you can always hear which players are hearing the orchestra in their head while they play along. So why would it be any more of a reach to sit at home and build a recording yourself and imagine everything happening, or the parts happening, especially on these collaborative recordings, you know, that I've been, most of which I've participated in, but I've even produced one that I didn't even play on. And watching some of the excitement some of these guys brought to the recording, and I'm thinking, they're playing along with a MIDI playback track that's as sort of, you know, microwave oven precise as gets, you know. So I just respectfully disagree. You know, I think especially somebody like me who's, you know, I mean, 1 million people have clicked play on my recording. So I think there's something to it, you know. Like, I didn't intend to, you know, I didn't set out to do that. I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna make an overdub page and have 1 million listens. I was like, no, you know, I was like, okay, maybe 10 people might listen to this, or, you know, whatever.
Just saying 10 people every time. No.
Yeah, just hitting play. Like, I'm the background music in some shop, right? You know? But yeah, I just think that people need to sort of think about the uniqueness of this medium, and how it, you know, like, one of the cool things about doing it is also that you get to try out arrangements that you do. You get to, like, test them out. And let me tell you, you know, I have never been to one of my trombone movies concerts and had somebody say, this is not playable. Because I played it, you know.
Jamal did it, yeah.
Yeah, and I know every note, so I know it's playable. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy, you know, but you you know, it gives me a lot of insight onto also how to write stuff, how to like tweak it and make it fit for the, you know, for the ensemble in a way that works, you know, like it's hard, but it works. And it just takes, I mean, man, that ITF concert last summer.
Oh, that was so amazing.
I kept getting lost in the rehearsals. I kept like not coming in because I'd look over and I'd see like, you know, John Romero and
Yeah.
you know, Nick Schwartz, and he's like incredible, and Jeff D. I'd be like, yeah, man, yeah. Oh wait, I'm supposed to play. You know?
It was like the most glorious concert. It was so incredible.
Yeah, yeah, and people loved it. I mean, you know, again, like I said, I'm just trying to show what's possible, not probable.
Yeah.
Of course, it's tough and it's hard to reach, and you know, but yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, especially like one of my really fond memories of these concerts was when I did the one at Juilliard. And, you know, Joe wanted to play. I think he probably would have been happy if I conducted the whole thing and he just got to play the whole time.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
You know, I mean, why would he do that if it wasn't fun music and, you know, the arrangements weren't, you know, of a certain quality. So,
well,
you know.
speaking of probable and possible and all those things, do you want to show us a little bit about that process for people who are
yeah. I have a little clip that I'm gonna do, and I kind of want to do an
T-shirt shout out too, by the way.
What's that? Oh yeah.
T-shirt shout out, Alderon.
It's not a Star Wars thing though. I'm misleading you.
Right, yeah, of course.
But yeah, I'm gonna do a little clip, and I'm gonna just use Audacity, just because I'm gonna go old school, and I'm not gonna use one of my fancy mics or anything. I'm just gonna use the Audio Technica mic that I've had for 6-7 years now. It's been all over the world, that mic.
Awesome.
It's always in my backpack, and it's not expensive, and I'm just using my MacBook. And so let's see here. Okay.
You gonna share your screen, or are we gonna keep it on you? Cool.
Okay, so let me just check. You're hearing that click track, right?
I got you. Yeah.
Okay. Here.
Awesome. And I think we'll just say to people there was a little bit of a delay.
In fact, you know what? Why don't I just why don't I switch it over to Logic? I think that probably go a little smoother. Let's try that.
It's an exercise in articulation while we wait for you to.
Exactly. Exactly.
We need Arvin when.
That's right. Oh, wait. You know, I had an issue with this at some point. And I remember, there we go. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I know there's a little delay getting to you guys, but just so you can hear it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so let's just listen to that.
Yeah, let's play it back.
Okay, so there's some delay in there because it's going through Zoom and then it's like sending the signal back and stuff. But you get a basic idea of what's going on there, right? So in case anyone hasn't figured it out yet, that's the middle section from Superman. And I just love the tight, packed harmony that he does there. So, but I want to talk about this, and I think this is part of the problem with people doing overdubs these days, is that they're playing to the tape. They feel like, oh, the red light's on and blah, blah, blah. Well, so I have this, which, if you guys see, this is a Bluetooth page turner.
Oh, cool.
And what I have it set up to do is, if you're looking still at the Logic screen, if I push the right pedal, it starts recording. And if I push it again, it goes back and starts recording from where I started.
Oh, that's rad.
Now, think how fast that lets you move. Like, I never save takes. I don't like go and do a bunch of takes and then pick a take. I play until I hear it sound the way I want it to sound, you know?
Huh.
And, you know, something important, I mean, if anybody listening, you know, takes something away from this, this is a great Norman Bolter saying that I always try to remember, especially when I'm in a medium like this that you can get derailed so quickly into the technique and the technology and the chops and all that, and be like trying different horns and stuff, is never lose sight of this statement. Mm-hmm. It's not who wrote the music, but what wrote the music.
Neat. That's nice.
Yeah, it does. You know, who wrote the music is not as important as what wrote the music. And so, like, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to leave this here, you know, and I'm going to try this again a few bars down here. And, you know, when you think about a character like Superman, you know, you think about the meaning of the music. I mean, if it's like the music has to mean something to you, right? Because if it doesn't mean anything to you, how's it going to mean anything to anyone else who's listening? So you have to charge it with something. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to play it with some meaning. And so when I play this tune, you know, I mean, this is a piece from this march is from my childhood. I mean, all I have to think about is that incredible scene in the Christopher Reeves the Christopher Reeves Superman movie. Sorry. Yeah.
Star Wars. It's
all on the head. Yeah. It's all running together for me these days. But the Christopher Reeves Superman, that scene where he catches the helicopter as he's catching Lois Lane, like on the side of the thing, and the music changes, and he's like, I got you. And she's like, why? You got me. Who's got you? You know, like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about that. And so this is a perfect time for you to be able to, like, think about the beauty of that. I can stop time for a moment and get myself in the right mindset of what I want the music to sound like, and then start recording. We never get that luxury in a live concert. You're always like, okay, this entrance is coming up, I got to nail it, or I'm prepared, or this audition's come up, you never get to be like in your ideal environment of, okay, let me warm up a little, you know. Okay, now
you're finally ready.
Yeah, it's like, okay, now what is this piece about? Okay, Superman. This middle section is sort of it's not as like overtly heroic. It's kind of like more about his inner will and his inner, you know, desire, you know, like his nobility, his honor, you know. So now I'm going to do this again, and I'm going to think about that. And I'm sorry, I realized I didn't switch the mic over. It's probably been
no, it's fine on my end here. I'm sure.
Oh, okay, good, good. Okay, so I want everyone who's listening to, like, think about somebody heroic that they know. It could be anybody, a person, maybe it's somebody they don't even know. Maybe it's just a figure, a person, a player that they've always looked up to that they've never met, or, you know, a sports figure, whatever it is. Think of somebody heroic or something heroic that they've done, because that's what I'm thinking about right now. Okay.
I hear it already.
Okay. Now
I'm so excited to hear the playback.
Let's listen to that. Would you rather listen to this one?
Man.
I mean, there's some
totally different group, Jim.
And it's you just saw me do it live, like so this is the point I'm trying to make, is that I really urge people who are burned out or feel like they're over this or whatever to reconsider, because there's so much good music to be made in this environment if you do it in this way. And if you find another way, that's whatever. But like, I want to play something else for you guys. Like, I'm going to share this with you, which this is a clip of that spot.
Mm-hmm.
The very first time that that very first Superman overdub I did 8 years ago. This is the very beginning of it. Now, 2 years later, I got better equipment, but I'm recording in the same house, same trombones, same player, but I've got 2 years of experience under my belt.
Holy moly.
So people right now are in their 3rd month of overdubbing and they're expecting to sound like that. And I'm like, you know how many hours more than you I've been doing this, and I'm still chasing after this. Like, so again, I just have to reiterate, like, people who are poo-pooing this, like, I could not disagree in more strong language, like, well, I guess I could, but you know what I'm getting at.
TV, yeah.
And it just affords a certain, like, these collaborative recordings I've been making with the PSO brass section has been so fun, because like these guys, they get to do they've totally gotten into it. You know, they've totally gotten into the whole, like, man, this is so fun. And like, I can craft this thing exactly the way I want it to. And then, you know, I take it and I edit it together. And so I have a little surprise that if you guys want to see
Yes.
something kind of cool. I'm not done with it yet, and I'm going to change some things about the footage, but it probably will come out next week. But I have this new video and recording that I've been working on. Oh, but by the way, I forgot to answer your question earlier about how long does it take?
Yeah.
How long does it take? Something like that, that's like 16 parts, 14 parts that I'm recording it all. It takes about, to get that level, takes about a day per minute and a half.
Oh, the
so
track.
Yeah, so it's a lot of, you know, it's a lot of time, but I'm telling you, like, I always put the art of it first, and then I reverse engineer. Like, you have to do the work, you know, you have to like decide what art you're going to make and then do the work. You can't just do the work and hope the art just kind of falls out. You know?
Right.
You know, so you need to start. I think I want to encourage people who are doing overdubs to first start with what they're like, imagine the finish line and imagine what they want it to sound like, and then work their way back from there.
It's definitely a passion project.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be, you know, like, I love it because you do all this work and you've practiced all this time, and then at the end you have this product, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Tangible.
but yeah, and you can like share it with people and like,
Right.
you know, hey, check this out, you know, and it's been really cool. And, you know, yeah, there's some recordings out there that are dropping that, you know, I can hear that they're in their sort of, you know, infancy, you know, in the terms of this technology. I mean, there's some people who are starting to do this who didn't know a USB cable from a telephone cable, you know. It's like they don't know what any of that was. So, and I've always just kind of been into this stuff, so it was a natural progression. But yeah, I have a little sneak preview. If you want me to.
Sneak peek.
Yeah, this is just this is an arrangement that I did of a piece called the Grand Canyon Fanfare.
Okay.
And it's from a really kind of silly movie, but it's this amazing piece that happens at the very end of the movie when all the characters arrive at the grandeur of the Grand Canyon, and it's only brass. It's just like 6 horns, 4 trumpets, and 3 trombones, bass trombone, and tuba. And I added a contrapart, and I may have added a few soprano trombone parts.
And that's no surprise.
So I'm just going to give you the first minute, and this is very much a work in progress. So.
Super. Oh, hell.
Oh, wait a minute. You know what? I'm going to do it this way. Hold on a second. I know what happened. Okay.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I realize I did something wrong here. So you can see there's my buddy Jeff.
Yeah, man.
Okay, that's all you get.
Oh my gosh, it's so great. It's so good. Oh my God. Do you want to give a quick shout out to the other people who are playing in the video?
Yeah, this one was actually, it was done, like we had this, if you go to my YouTube page, you can see this Superman video that I did with, I only did it with one trumpet, 1 horn, 1 tuba, and me, and that's it. Just because I wanted to see if I could even do it.
Sure.
Like I had just gotten Final Cut Pro in April, you know. So these parts were recorded right after that, but I've just now gotten around to it, and I kind of put it on the back burner for a while. But that's Chad Winkler is playing trumpet, Mark Houghton's playing horn, and Bob Lauver is playing horn. And of course, Jeff D is playing bass trombone, and Craig Knox is playing tuba, and I'm playing soprano, tenor, and contrabass trombone.
So great. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see this.
But I mean, you know, how would you not have fun doing that?
Right, totally. And
know?
and it can be so accessible for college students, for professionals, for freelancers and hobbyists. I mean, you can do this with your friends. You can do this with your studio mates. I mean, exactly. It's really pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Cool. Well, and the hardest part is getting started. Like just that first learning curve, and then once you get your stride, you know. I hate mentioning him twice in one episode, but Lance LeDuc again. He has this really funny formula. He says your success with technology, your percentage of success with technology is 100 minus your age.
Oh, nice.
So naturally, you know, like my wife's youth orchestra has a virtual summer camp, and I'm teaching an overdubbing class.
Yeah.
And those kids are like picking it up like so fast, you know. But and then I have some colleagues in the orchestra that I had to spend a fairly long Zoom call to.
A little different. I get that. I get that. I mean, it is so cool. And so just like a quick little, I guess, like pre-shout out that you're going to be doing a session with STS, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm doing that one is going to be cool because I mean, I think these are all cool.
Fireworks going off in the background. It's not shot.
Oh.
In Rhode Island.
Right, yeah. That one's going to be fun. I mean, I think they're all fun personally, but that one's going to be interesting because I asked Brad to get everyone to submit. Like, I'm going to try to do like all right, you've been overdubbing for 3 months. What's the biggest pain? What's the biggest problem?
That's cool. That's nice.
You know, like a solve these problems kind of. And I'm going to try to go through as many as I can.
You're going to be the troubleshooting Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, because so many people call me, especially with Audacity. Oh, I can't get it to do this. Oh, yeah, just do this, and then they like send them on there. I'm like a mechanic, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to share that, because I'm learn from my experience on this stuff. I've just been doing it so long that there's so many little tiny setting changes and stuff that you can adjust, and you guys are watching me do it live because Zoom introduces some kind of weird lag into Logic, and me fixing it in real time is like,
it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Sure. You mentioned the word mechanic, and it brought us to a good question that we got in from our friend Wes Lebo. Wondering.
Oh, hi, Wes.
Hey, Wes, buddy. Wondering if you could talk about how you got into cars, particularly BMWs and tracks, and what, if any, relationship or impact that hobby has on your music.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that's all Glenn Dodson's fault.
Is it really?
Yeah, he was a big Porsche guy when he was, and one of my fondest memories of him actually was, I wasn't dealing with a global pandemic, but I was, in my junior year at Curtis, I was like this close to quitting. I just gotten to a place where, again, this ties into what I was saying about overdubbing too, is that you got to remember the reasons and the sentiments you got into music in the first place. You can't let the study and the technique and the development of it override that, because otherwise you'll never have enough fuel in the tank to do it. And so I had gotten to a place where that's all I could hear. When I would play, I would just hear what I didn't like. And while some of that is good, too much, it's like taking too much of a vitamin or something. If you take too much of it, it can be harmful. It can hurt your body, And so I was really down in the dumps, and I had this freak thing with my horn where like I set it down and like the screw joint came loose and the bell fell onto the slide, and like it dented through both slides, so I like literally couldn't move it. And I called Glenn Dodson up and I said, this happened, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he says, why don't you come over to the house, and I have a repair tool that can at least get it going until you can get to a shop, So I went over there, and we were playing all these duets and stuff, and he was taking out all these old recordings of when he was younger, and when he was in Chicago, I think he even pulled out some of his old Marine band.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he was the solo trombone player in the Marine band,
Yeah.
and all this cool stuff. And at the end of the night, we're wrapping up, and he's like, "So Jim, talk to me. Like, I feel like you're really not doing so hot. You seem really down, and he totally, it was obvious, and I told him how frustrated I was with my lack of progress, and I felt like I was doing a disservice to the legacy of the school, and I just felt awful. I just wasn't getting better fast enough, in my opinion." And he kind of turned his head and he said, "Jim, that is absolutely completely out of alignment with how I feel about it."
Wow.
He's like, "I think you're doing great work. You're really, you're progressing very quickly. I think you're doing really good work. You can't see it because you're seeing it every time you play.
Yeah.
And I see you once a week and I hear the big jumps you keep making." And he's like, I'm not worried about you at all."
That's great.
And that was when I realized, I probably should just shut the hell up and just, keep, just do what I'm doing and take he knows more than me, so I should take his advice, but it was late. So it was probably close to midnight at that point. He lived kind of on the outskirts of the Philly city limits. And he was like, "I don't really feel comfortable with you walking home. So I'm going to give you a ride home." And he pulls he had a Porsche 914, and it's
Oh my gosh.
one of those old ones that's like basically about up to my hip.
Yeah.
And we got into that car, and he literally broke every traffic law between that house and my apartment. I mean, he was like, that fountain where the Rocky scene is, where the museum. He drove around that fountain. It was like, I thought we were going to go airborne or something, I mean, it was hilarious. I know he was showing off. I mean, now that I'm a car guy, and I know he was totally showing off.
Yeah.
And I would ride with him sometimes he would do like master classes in New York. And there was a couple times where I was the only one who could go, and I wanted to go. I wanted to listen. And so he definitely planted that car seed, and he dropped me off in my apartment. And I remember just feeling so pumped up and like back, renewed faith and just renewed, energy. And he sped off. And as I look back, I was like, you know what, someday I'm going to drive a stupidly fast car and I'm going to play in a great orchestra. That's it, And so here it is, and now I'm in, not only do I drive, I drive BMWs. I have an M4, BMW M4, and, but I'm an instructor at the Pittsburgh International Racetrack.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it's not really a job. Like, I mean, if you do it, if you get up in the ranks, it can be a full-time job. But like, basically what it is I instruct at this track, and I get track time in return.
Yeah.
Like, they kind of like credit.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's actually, if you want to see what that's like, I have a YouTube video of a track of a couple laps I'm doing where my average speed is 98 miles an hour, So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. In fact, I have done track days where one of my such a funny memory. I was at the track, and I was like, I saw something was wrong with one of my brakes, and I like took the wheel off, jacked it up, took it apart, and fixed the problem, put it back together. And I had this shop jacket on that came from a place that I used to go to in Salt Lake City. A buddy of mine gave me this shop jacket, and it says Jimmy James on it. That was his nickname for me, Jimmy James. Hey, Jimmy James, come on, So I had the shop jacket, and so I looked like a mechanic. And this guy who was parked next to me was like, watched me do the brake thing, take it apart, and goes, "Man, that was impressive how fast you did that. Like, what's the shop you work at?" And I was like, "Come again?" I was like, "No, I play trombone in the Pittsburgh Symphony." I might as well have said I'm a Martian, like it was like, "What?" And so, but that day I did that full track session. I left the track at 5:30 p.m. and then we had Check 6 that night.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah, so
Your world is just
it's pretty funny. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But in answer to Wes's question, there are actually a lot of similarities because when you have a track, it's a set track, it's a set road,
right?
And you have to learn the different corners, how fast to take them, where to turn in, where to brake, fixing little mistakes to increase. And it's just like learning a piece of music. A piece of music is set, you know, it's written down, and you have to solve little problems, breathe in little different places. Just like in a car, you have to brake a little later, turn in earlier, or watch for that cone, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. And you're literally like shaving off seconds, and then, you know, as you go, sometimes fractions of a second. So it ties in very much. In fact, I am this close to getting Joe on a track.
Oh,
Yeah, he totally, can you imagine what he would be like, how quickly he would learn that, you know?
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And now he's got the car to do it.
Yeah. You'd have a total blast too.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, I do just want to give a quick shout out for people. I did link Jim's website where you can check out his latest incredible recording project. The thing is absolutely nuts. So that's on the website, and I also linked your SoundCloud and your YouTube page too, so people can kind of check that out. But yeah, you're going to be doing the STS thing.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Yeah,
that's be fun.
That'll be a total blast.
And George's thing next week too. I'm going to do.
That's next week.
Yeah. Can you believe it? I know.
I can't believe we're
just like that. Yeah.
It's crazy. But do you have the other thing that we didn't talk about, and maybe just a quick little plug, you do a lot of teaching also. You teach education.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you teach privately and all of that. So.
Well, and I've actually been doing a fair amount of online teaching where we don't even talk about trombone. We just talk about all this technology stuff and how to edit and master. And like I use Logic Pro, so like people want to learn that program, or you know, I'm happy to do a mix of it too, like, you know, trombone and some tech stuff. Or I mean, invariably I use technology to help, you know, speed things along in certain developments. But yeah, I'm teaching online. I mean, I'm very easy to find. Just email me at jim@jimnova.com. So.
Yeah, and so people can do that on your website too, right?
Right, there's a contact page there, yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
This whole session has been a total blast. And also so fun, like leading up to the 4th of July with all this like great brass playing that we're used to hearing and stuff. And
yeah,
I've been able to check out some of your recordings. Like it will put some pep in your step for sure. Like it's a lot of fun. But to be able to see you work through that process, even just like that little teaser of it. I mean, thank you for doing that live.
Sure. Oh yeah. I love doing it live because, believe it or not, I've actually had some people who don't think, like, they think I'm, you know, Milli Vanilli-ing it or whatever, you know, like, and I'm like, no, I'm really doing this stuff, you know, like it's, you know, if you could hear some of the soprano trombone attempts, you would, yeah, I mean, there's times where I'm playing that horn where I literally have to put it down for a while because I'm starting to get like mildly dizzy.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
You know, I mean, it's just nuts, but it's a great sound. I mean, it just sounds like a giant trumpet, you know? I mean, it's a trombone mouthpiece on a trumpet. How can you know, yeah.
Just, I think, and you can maybe tell me where this is actually housed, but that recording during ITF of like the final concert with everybody playing, do you have that up on your YouTube page? Is that on the, where is that?
Not yet. I'm editing it as we speak, you know.
Oh, really? I didn't even know. I didn't mean to like.
Yeah. No, it's fine. My plan is to, you know, try and release it around the time that the ITF was supposed to be, you know.
Oh, cool.
And I'm going to cut it into each movement, so it's just a little more digestible, you know, like, yeah, I mean, YouTube is, it just seems, you know, it's funny. People would rather listen to 10 3-minute videos than one 30-minute video.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of cut it up into smaller,
palatable.
Yeah, and just touch up the audio a little bit because basically I just have the raw recording from that concert and I'm going to match it up to the video and, you know, do something.
Nice. Okay. Well, we'll be sure to share that on the Shires page and stuff too.
Yeah. That'll be fun.
I mean, like that's maybe one of my most favorite live performances that I've been able to see at like my role at Shires, like just ever. Like,
well, I was just sitting there during like how did I get here?
Yeah.
You know, like how did this kid from the cornfields of Connecticut, tobacco fields and cornfields of Connecticut get here? Yeah. This is crazy, you know? So I was very honored that all those, I mean, all those guys who played literally said yes, like the same day I asked them.
Right. And a lot of them are great friends and obviously wonderful people.
Oh
And
yeah.
the whole package coming together is very, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, like the one I was kind of most excited about was Jurgen, just because I'd never met him in person. I've just, and he said yes immediately. In fact, I snapped a picture of him. He was at breakfast one morning, and I saw him like studying the parts.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And I was like, yeah, I'm getting a picture of that.
That's
I've always loved his playing, so it's just
he's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, thank you so much for doing this.
Sure.
It was a total treat.
Yeah.
And we'll obviously share your projects and stuff like we typically do, but
Sure.
Definitely encourage people to check out his website and his YouTube and the SoundCloud stuff because it'll make you happy. It's great, but like some of just the most fun music to listen to. So it's really very cool.
I mean, that's my biggest hope is when people hear it that they sort of forget they're listening to trombone or that. Not that there's anything wrong with listening to trombone, but just like I said before, I try to record to the music, not to the mic.
Yes.
And John wrote such incredible music that tells such a great story. It could be virtually played on any instrument, and so that's what I try to play to is try to, play to that. And that's what I encourage people to do when they do these overdubs is like try, even if it's just like playing to the fun of it, I just want to have some fun doing this, like I think it's just got, sort of beats the hell out of playing scales and arpeggios. Like, it's kind of, not that there's anything wrong with doing that and it's useful, of course, but like, why not put it into a piece?
You don't know until you test it. You don't know until you
Yeah. And please, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to email me. I'm very happy to help people get started. And if they want to have like a full blown lesson, that's fine too. I mean, I can work that out, of course. So
that's awesome. Well, thanks for being a part of this, and thanks to everybody who tuned in, and for everybody who's going to tune in after the fact. We'll be sure to archive this on the Facebook page, and we'll throw it on our YouTube page too.
Cool.
And we'll keep more Shires TV content coming. We have a couple fun panels that we're going to do. We're going to do a orchestral trumpet panel. We're going to do an orchestral trombone panel. We'll do a military band one, which will be very cool too. And we're going to work in some more artists and different topics. And then I think we'll do a factory tour and also have some of our team leaders from the factory on hand to answer like techie dork questions about so that part will be pretty fun. But stay tuned and we'll keep stuff coming out to you guys, and everybody stay safe and keep practicing and go work on some overdub projects.
That's right.
I hope you're inspired after this.
Cool.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye, Facebook land.
Bye.
Bye.